It is now my pleasure to introduce one of AARP California's trusted advisors, Naomi Nakano Matsumoto, and she's going to share a couple of words. Naomi?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Naomi Nakano Matsumoto, and I'm a volunteer with AARP California. We welcome everyone joining us virtually today. AARP California is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that works on behalf of our 38 million members statewide to enhance the quality of life for all people as we age. And 38 million members nationally and 3.3 million statewide to enhance the quality of life for all people as we age, which includes providing fun and informative events. May is Asian Pacific and Islander Heritage Month. It is a month to commemorate and pay tribute to the many contributions that generations of Asian American
and also having lower back pain
have made to American history, society, and culture. It also offers us a time for reflection to better understand the Asian and Pacific Islander experience today. Indisputably, the rise in anti-Asian sentiment, harassment, and hate crimes have risen over the last 2 years. These attitudes and actions run counter to AARP values. AARP's vision is a society in which all people live it with dignity and purpose and fulfill our goals and dreams. AARP continues to fight for social justice and to end age discrimination, embrace a culture of innovation, and advocate for healthcare, financial resilience, and personal fulfillment for all. Throughout the month of May, AARP is offering an array of educational events that celebrate the culture and contributions of Asian American and Pacific Islanders to our community. You can learn more at aarp.org/ca. This afternoon's offering provides an informative discussion with film director and actor of Find Me, Tom Hwong. Find Me highlights the story of a man searching for his friend who leaves clues for him in national parks across the United States. The film features stunning footage of locations including Zion National Park, Death Valley, and Yosemite. During today's conversation, we will hear from Tom on his experiences making the film as a member of the AAPI community. We will also hear from the California Natural Resources Agency and learn about Asian and Pacific Islander markers located in California's great parks. Open spaces are a critical component of a community that is livable for all ages, which is why we are excited to learn more about some of the greatest parks in the Western US and their connection with the AAPI community. I would now like to turn it over to the contemporary Asian theater scene, our partner for today's event and moderator. We hope you enjoy and thank you.
Hello, and thank you so much. Really appreciate the introduction. My name is Leanne Lamb, and I'm the Executive Director of Contemporary Asian Theater Scene, otherwise known as CATS, as Sophia had mentioned. We are so excited to be part of AARP's programming this month to celebrate the AAPI Heritage Month. There's no program better than to get out to nature, and we're very excited to be co-hosting this program. We're screening and a great conversation with the filmmaker Tom Hwong. I wanted to tell you a little bit about Contemporary Asian Theater Scene. Our mission is to showcase Asian American artists and the important stories that come through that people need to hear about in theater, in film, in literary arts, and in comedy. So it is especially important for us to be presenting this and hosting this program and this conversation with Tom Hwong for the next 20 minutes. If you have any questions, please put them in the question or in the chat, and we'll pick those up and address those after a brief conversation. With that, I'd like to give a little intro on Tom. Tom is an award-winning indie filmmaker, producer, and writer, striving to make films that say something as well as entertain. Films with a soul. And with that, Find Me has drawn rave reviews from so many different sources. It's won the 100% coveted score on Rotten Tomatoes. It has won the on many festivals, audience awards, and it's participated in many film festivals, including the Silicon Valley Asian American Film Festival that CATS puts on in October. Find Me is also won the best screenplay in the Rhode Island International Film Festival and the best feature film in the Atlanta Independent Film Festival. There's so many festivals that this film has gone into, and it's so important that we're bringing it out to everybody else to see. I believe you can see it till Friday, so please make sure if you haven't seen it, or if you just want to see it again as a way to enter the weekend, you have another opportunity for the next 24 hours. Also, one thing about Find Me is the great accolades it's got from Outside Magazine that named it the best indie adventure film that we all need. And Hollywood Reporter thought this film should actually be in the theaters and in IMAX because of its incredible cinematic beauty. So and they also said the country's national parks are bound to get an upsurge in visitors if enough people see this film. So, and I'm sure that that's bound to happen, and if it has already happened. With that, I'd like to introduce Tom Hwong to the conversation. Welcome, Tom.
Hey, hello everyone. Thanks for coming out.
Excellent. Hey, Tom, this film, I just really want to thank you for this film because it just leaves you with great feelings and pure inspiration. And thinking about inspiration, can you tell us a little bit what inspired you to make this film?
Well, I was waiting for another film to get off the ground, actually. And it was taking so long to get off the ground, I got really frustrated. And I was actually in Zion National Park, and I was in the Narrows, which is in the film, and I was looking at the gorgeous towering walls of the canyons, and I thought, you know, I want to make a film where people point at the screen and say, I want to go there. And so that's kind of where I started thinking about the idea for the film. And that night I went home and started writing it. And, you know, 3 months later, me and my producers made plans to shoot it, and we shot it over a year.
Wow. Wow. A lot of things can happen over the course of a year in the different weather. Was that a problem?
We kind of had to do that also because you know, we shot in Death Valley, in Yosemite, in Zion, and there are like optimal times to be there at different times of the year. So, you know, we shot in Yosemite in July, which was great in Yosemite, but if we shot in July in Death Valley, you know, we would have died. So it was actually worked out really well that we spread out over a year. And so we would shoot like maybe, you know, 4 or 5 days a month, and then I would edit what we had for that month. And then by the end of the year, we had a rough cut for a whole film. So it actually worked out really well.
That's really impressive, Tom. When you produced this film, it was a couple of years ago, and life was different in 2019.
Yeah.
And then the film was, it's almost got, it has different meanings from 2019 to over the pandemic to even now. Can you comment on each of those impacts? And
yeah, sure. I think you know, when obviously when we first actually came out to festivals and things like that, that was in 2017, 18, and we released the film on Amazon in 2019. You know, it was just about like trying to get people to know about these places and encourage them to get outdoors. You know, like I said, I wrote the film because I wanted to inspire people to see the outdoors and all these beautiful spaces. And of course, when the pandemic hit and we were all trapped in our homes, it just meant so much more that, you know, I think we just take these places for granted sometimes. And when there was a whole year when you know, we weren't allowed to go out and go to these national parks because they were closed. I think the film took on a different meaning for people, and definitely people watched a lot of films, and actually since it was online on Amazon Prime, a lot of people end up staying home and watching things, and started watching things that were about getting out of the house. And I think that also helped inspire people as well. So it probably extended the online life for the film because people saw all these you know, pictures of these outdoor spaces and said, hey, let's check that out. And we got a lot of views during that time as well. But for me personally, my wife's family actually has a cabin in Yosemite. And so we usually take the whole family out there at least once a year, usually 2 or 3 times a year. And they have a year where they had to close it down. Just made me realize how much we missed doing that. I think the animals in Yosemite were very happy that it got closed down, because I don't know if you read about it, but life kind of came back all around all these places where people would go visit. But after about a year and a half, they let some people in, including people who had residencies there. So we were one of the first people to get inside the park. And it was really amazing because there was no one there to this walk around the valley with no cars and no people. Really made you also appreciate what it was like before people were able to see it. But it was a pretty special moment.
Wow, I think one of the bittersweet kind of things of the pandemic is that it was quiet.
Yeah.
And there was some, it took us a moment to pause and enjoy it. This film was actually a perfect connection to that. I think during the pandemic, people could actually play golf and go to the parks, right? I think those was 2 things that people could actually appreciate.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for your film on that. Yeah, the roles that you played in this film, I think you might have played, I think I counted you on the credits. It was like 5 different areas. You were a producer, you were a writer, you were editor, and of course you acted in it. How in the world did you do that, and why did you do that?
Well, ever since film school, I went to film school at Loyola Marymount University, graduate film program over there. I always had to kind of do everything anyway. I actually started out wanting to act when I went to UCLA as an undergrad. I remember the first quarter I was there, I went to auditions for these one-act plays they have there. And even at UCLA, which is about 60% Asian, there were no roles for me. There was just one role that I could audition for out of 50 plays. And so I realized at that time that I needed to start making roles or stories about Asian Americans if I wanted to be involved in the industry. So that's when I started writing, realizing that directing is really something I love doing. But I've always had a love for acting. So during film school, I always acted in my own films. And when this film came about, when I wrote it, it was supposed to be a low budget film. And if we had, it's also a union film, Screen Actors Guild union film. And if we had hired someone to take them out to all these national parks, it would actually double our budget because of all the travel costs and costs that you have to pay actors if you take them out of their home area, which makes sense. So it just made more sense that if I wrote the role, there was someone close to me that I could do it. And so I've done it before with other films, so I was really kind of excited and happy to do it. We kept the crew very small. But it's just one of those things when you're making small independent films that since you don't have a very big budget, you just can't pay people to do things. And if you could do it yourself, then you just do it. And so being the producer, the writer, the director, the editor, those are all things that I have a lot of experience in. And so, if we have this very small budget, I just thought, let's just do it. And I've done it before. And so it was actually quite natural for me.
That's wonderful. I think it's great to be an expert and multitasker in all facts. You're just waiting for yourself on the other side.
Yeah. And I think, my film that just came out called Dealing with Dad, which is on the festival circuit now, I am not acting in this film. And I made a very conscious effort that I wanted to spend my focus on directing for a film. And this is the film I wanted to do it for. So, I was fortunate enough that I was able to have the budget to do that for my last film. But, I'll go back to acting and directing again, if I find the right project for it.
Right. Or if you write it.
That's right.
Can you talk about as an Asian American filmmaker, can you tell us how that affected and influenced this film?
I would say part of it was I didn't really get into the outdoors until after I met my wife. She started a blog about going out to taking places to take your kids to see nature. And so we ended up going to a lot of places that I would have gone to before. You know, when I was young, just culturally, my parents, I think, preferred going to Reno and Las Vegas than you know, anywhere in the outdoors. You know, if it was going to the outdoors, it was just like someplace we can get out and take a picture, and not really, you know, hike around and really experience it. So I think, you know, growing up, I never really camped or did any of that kind of stuff. And so when I started getting my kids into it, I realized that it was something that was really, really great. And that's when I realized that, you know, I want to do more of this. And so the more I got into it, the more I just tried to find places I can go to see amazing things in the outdoors. The more I realized that I wanted to like at least do some sort of film about it. And that's kind of part of what went into making Find Me. As far as being Asian American in this film, you know, my parents are immigrant Chinese. My dad's from Taiwan. My mom's from Shanghai. They came from poor families. They worked hard to become, you know, upper middle class here in the Bay. I was actually raised in the Bay Area, and so they try to instill that kind of need for security in me. So actually, when I went to UCLA, I was an econ major, thinking I was going to be a lawyer. I took one econ class, and after a couple of weeks, I just walked out and realized this is not what I want to do. But I know that, you know, for a lot of Asian American kids, with especially ones with immigrant parents, second generation, first generation kids, you know, there's a great need to find the job that will pay the bills and find the job that will give you family security, which is great. But a lot of times people just get lost and trying to strive after security and not take care of themselves. And so I kind of wanted to touch on that from my experience with my family in this film with this character. You know, the film is about a wounded emotionally wounded accountant who really doesn't feel like he has anything left after a divorce. And he ends up being forced to see the outdoors, and that's what heals him. And so, you know, I wanted to hopefully inspire people to find their passion. You know, it doesn't mean you have to quit your job or anything, but if you find that you are getting burnt out or, you know, working just for a paycheck, you know, find something else, find the passion that will feel like you have life and a reason to, you know, keep moving forward.
You know, I just want to thank you so much, because I think no matter where you're watching this, it causes self-reflection. You know, what are you doing with your own life? As active as anyone might be, or how as sedentary as one might be, wherever their comfort is. But always remember, there's an element of renewal, a point where you can always restart again. And I thought that the film was so effective in doing that at any point.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think, you know, as a filmmaker, you have aspirations to, you know, your big aspirations are like, oh, you know, hopefully I'll get into Sundance, or like, hey, maybe I'll get nominated for an Oscar, which, you know, is really, I think it really always go for the goal, but it's really hard to achieve. It just doesn't happen a lot. So when I was making this film, you know, that was obviously part of my hopes and dreams, and it didn't get into Sundance, and so I was bummed. But we were able to release it on Amazon Prime. And I think when I got an email from someone who was watching the film while going through chemotherapy, he emailed me and said, like, you know, I watched the film and it inspired me so much that I left after chemo and went straight to Yellowstone National Park. I got a plane and went to, you know, because I felt like I was missing this, you know. And, you know, I got emotional and I realized, you know, this is the reason why I'm making movies. You know, if I can make movies to, like you said, inspire people and make a positive impact in this world, then that's really what my reward for the film. You know, not any sort of prize or you know, or going to the Oscars, which would be nice, of course, but you know, that would just be icing.
That's beautiful. That's quite impactful. Wow. Thanks for sharing that. That's definitely rewarding in itself.
Yeah, and I'd say that, like, when the film was at its height and Amazon Prime, and we were getting millions of views, and being on the top viewed lists in adventure and comedy and drama films, I would daily get emails from people who were inspired by it in some way. And I just had no idea that, that this little film that we made could reach out to people in that way. And it's just very gratifying. And I just feel so grateful for the fact that I could do this, and that I had such great actors and people, my director of photography, and people that make the film come alive in a way that was unique.
Very nice. One thing that when I was growing up, my dad brought us out hiking a lot in the Oakland Hills and all over, and I never saw very many other Asians out there.
Yeah.
It was something that I think we were a little bit more on the early part. So I just it's representation matters, and being able to see ourselves out there is important. And now I see a lot of people, a lot of Asian Americans in REI gear and North Face gear, and they're out there, and it's very common. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up, because actually I'm in the middle of finishing the script or a story for the sequel for Find Me, and we're going to go to different places, but the film is actually going to be centered around a trio of inner city kids from Oakland who decide to go out on their spring break to see the outdoors. And part of the reason is because after I made this film, I started talking to a lot of people in the outdoors. I did realize, this is what you're saying, is when I go to these national parks, there isn't a whole lot of diversity out there. Well, first of all, it's usually foreigners there as opposed to Americans. But there isn't a whole lot of diversity, and I wanted to explore that, why that has come about through the film, and also show I think diversity in film is one of the reasons why I got into filmmaking, and so it's just another opportunity for me to reach into that subject.
Thank you. We do have a question that came in, and it's how did you decide to have the main character, Joe, connect with a non-Asian woman character?
When I make movies that I write myself, I've written for TV before. I've written scripts for people before, and I consider myself as someone working for a client. So I'll do whatever they want to do, and usually it does not involve a lot of times, especially on network TV, it involve a diverse story. So for me, when I make films, I know I would make myself. I want to show the America the way I see it, which I see it in the U.S. and California, which is a very diverse group of people. So it's not just Asians or just whites or just blacks. It's a multicultural world where Asians and Latinos and whites and Indian and Native Americans or whatever are all hanging together in the same world. For me, I wanted to make sure that this cast was also as diverse as I see as my world that I live in. I knew that I wanted him to be connected with partners or love interests or whatever of different races. So his wife is white. My wife is actually Caucasian. I had not written a film actually, or made a film with a starring Latino or Latina character. And so I made a concerted effort this time to feature someone from that background. And I think fortunately, I live in Los Angeles, and when you make a film in Los Angeles, there's so many talented actors, such a pool of people to choose from, that you could choose about any race, and you're going to get talented, amazing actors. And so that was the case this time too. In this case, I wanted to make sure that these characters were of a different background. I chose the Latino background, and just kind of went from there.
It definitely worked. It was almost that it didn't matter what the characters were, what ethnicity there were, because it just works. So
yeah, I've made films before where your cultural identity, the character's cultural identity is important to the story. Like why they question why they are in this culture or the clashes that come in this culture. For Find Me, I just wanted to make a film about American people who just happen to be of different cultures. And so I very pointedly did not want to touch on any sort of culture aspects of backgrounds of the people, just show them as Americans. And I think I was very grateful when this film went to festivals and when I saw it screen in theaters that people didn't care what the background was. They just saw these people as people, and they recognized them just like Americans from a different part of the country. And I'm glad that was the case.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks for Joanne for asking that original question. We do have another question. It came from JG, and they're asking, what is your favorite cultural item? Going to China is on my bucket list, and I want to make sure or ensure to make the most of it.
Cultural, well, I mean, I would have to say it's food. I mean, I love eating different kinds of food. I love exploring food that people have tried that I haven't tried before, and I also love just trying food that's good, that people say this is the best in this area. I think that's the best part of travel for me, actually. Sometimes it's seeing like the Mona Lisa or whatever, that's great, but like to be able to try the local food and cooked by the way it's traditionally been cooked by the people who are experts at it, the people that live there, is probably the greatest gift I could ever ask for in traveling. And it doesn't even have to be like outside of the US. Like every time I travel for film festivals, every city has their own kind of regional cuisine, whether it be a certain kind of barbecue or a certain way of fried chicken or whatever. It's like I gotta try it. And so I would say that definitely go on Travel Channel and watch those shows where they go and try weird foods in different countries, and especially the country of China, and try these different cuisines and try something you'd never tried before. I mean, that I think it opens up your mind and see how people see things more so than just a museum or something.
Excellent. There's so many questions and great comments. I think that's just blowing up the lines here. I just wanted to close on a couple of questions that I had. There's folks of all ages on this call right now, and a lot of the elements are the easy adventures. We're looking for the easy adventure. Are there certain ones? There's a certain place where you list your hikes, a place where people could actually go to as a reference point?
Well, I haven't made a list of my own hikes, but if you go to findmethefilm.com, that's our website. We have a guide for the 3 hikes that are in the film. Those hikes in the film are actual real hikes, and they are real, actual easy adventures. And I chose those hikes particularly because I wanted to find hikes that were easy for anyone, that's able to walk relatively well. So all those hikes are ones where you just have to park and get out and just walk on the trail. And although those hikes, like for example, the Narrows, you can go as far as you want. You can go, I think it's about a half-mile flat hike to the river, and you could hike for a quarter mile in the water, and if you're done, that's great. You're gonna see some amazing things and just walk back. Or if you want, you go like 2 or 3 miles and see some even more amazing things. But if you're with kids, or if you're alone and you're not that active, these hikes are all ones where you could go as far or as short as you want, and I guarantee you still see some amazing things and experience nature the way that I think you should, which is walking in it and being amongst it. If you are interested in actually doing those hikes, go to our website and click on the hikes tab on top, and there'll be resources where you could do those hikes.
Oh, good. Yosemite is definitely one of my favorite places. So the point, I've never been to Crocker Point, so that will be definitely my next point.
Yeah. And I think definitely go down to the valley if you haven't been there before and check it out and do all that kind of stuff. But if you're looking for something where there's gonna be less people and you're actually going to be among everything that's Yosemite and still see all those sites, I would recommend definitely doing that hike.
Excellent. Patty L has a question. asking about the ending that you had, and it seemed like Joe reconnected with his son, but there's this element with the sister that is just perking her mind.
You mean just that it's left it open-ended? Is that
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I didn't I think that the main story was about Joe finding some closure, and I think what Amelia, his friend, really just wanted to do as her last wish was just get Joe back on track. And so this was her way of doing that, to see that there's a world outside of just the world that he was kind of trapping himself into, including, connecting with his son, and seeing that there are other people out there that actually might like him. And so, the fact that his sister showed interest in him, I think was just what she just wanted to show him. And, I'm all about, leaving things kind of open if they don't need to be answered in films, just getting to the main points of what I'm trying to say. And so that open-ended thing actually will probably be answered in the sequel, but it's just more about, for me, that Joe has seen the world is actually brighter, and more open than he thought he was when he was in this funk, in this emotional funk. And so when he sees that and shows how nature has healed him, that's just what I wanted to show. And I think in the end you see that he's feeling good again, and that was the main thing.
Excellent. One thing I thought you did an incredible great job is of the music. The music just reflected the emotional anguish he was going through, or just the cautionary element, or just his opening up. Can you talk about that? Because I thought you did a great job, and I wasn't really familiar with a lot of the artists that you selected.
Yeah, thank you so much. Music is so important to me in this film, and I think I kind of backed myself in the corner a little bit with this film because it is a low budget film, and I wanted songs that I wanted made music for those montages. I didn't want like composed music like an orchestra, because when I go through the Narrows, or I see Half Dome in Yosemite, or I look at a grand vista in Death Valley, like everyone hears something different in their head, but I hear rock music, and I hear like big guitars and like loud music because it's so powerful to me. And so I wanted to just like show that in that way in the film, when Joe first sees these things. And so when I first made the film, we just put temporary music in the rough cut, and I used like music from like the Foo Fighters and Green Day and things like that, which I could which would cost me literally 5 times the budget of my film to actually afford. So I didn't know what I was going to do, but fortunately I had a music supervisor, and his job is to find music for the film. And I told him we don't have any money. We have a little bit, but not a whole lot. And he's actually a tour manager for indie bands, and he's also from South Africa. And so he said, you know what? I know a lot of bands, indie rock bands in South Africa. Let me bring some music for you to them. And so he brought me this great music from South Africa that was, exactly the tone and the feel that I wanted. And so the songs you hear in there are South African indie bands, indie rock bands. And so a lot of them were his friends, so he was able to like negotiate a great deal for us, and we could afford it. And so it just so happened that he just brought me these great bands that had these songs that just happened to have lyrics that match exactly what I wanted to show for those scenes and for the montages. And so it just kind of worked out, and I think it really lucked out. And a lot of people have emailed us and asked, hey, where can I get this music? And so we actually started there's a Find Me public playlist on Spotify and Apple Music that has all the songs from the soundtrack that you could just, if you have an Apple Music account, you could, just download, or you could just buy them all for like $1 each. But if you're interested in getting those songs, they are on Apple Music and Spotify, and any place you can buy music.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome. I'll do that right away.
Yeah.
the question is, were there any special issues about filming each location? That question came from June.
Yeah, we kept it. I made sure that we scouted each of those trails before we shot, so that we knew exactly where we wanted to shoot and how long we need to shoot there, so we could just get in and out of there as fast as possible. So it actually ended up working out well because we had pre-planned so well. So I went through the hikes, I took pictures, I took videos, I storyboarded it all out beforehand. So I showed my director of photography, this is what I want. So once we got in there, it was just me and the cameraman, there's no one else. And we just got in there, got the shots we needed. And we lucked out that every time we shot, the weather was just right. There wasn't rain, there wasn't any sort of inclement weather, or floods, or anything crazy. So it kind of all worked out in that sense. I will say that the one thing that was an issue was, not to get too personal, but when we were in the Narrows, about halfway through the shoot, I had to go to use the bathroom like really bad. There aren't bathrooms in there. And so I probably spent about 3 hours all cramped up trying to get all the shots done. And as soon as we were done shooting, I literally ran down the trail about a half mile to get to a bathroom, a proper bathroom. So that was probably like the biggest issue that I didn't plan for, was having to use the bathroom. But I got through that. So yeah, I feel fortunate.
Phew, that's good. I had a little bit of, I really appreciated, especially going through the Narrows, because I have a little claustrophobia. And so I was like, oh my gosh, he's going by himself through this. And I was wondering if there was any concern about
Claustrophobia?
yeah, right.
Well, no, not me, but actually, the Narrows is, it's narrow, but it's not that narrow. I mean, it's so big, it's such a gigantic area that there's probably at least 20 to 30 people breath between there, so you won't feel so bad there. Sidewater Canyon in Death Valley, there's some places that get so narrow that you got to kind of squeeze through.
Yes,
That's probably a little more, but those walls aren't as high as the Narrows. And the Narrows, like, those walls like go on forever, like they touch heaven. I mean, it's pretty crazy. But I think that if you go to Death Valley and Sidewinder Canyon, they're narrow that way, but you can actually see the sky and see the top of them. So it's not, hopefully it's not too bad. And the part where there might be claustrophobic view is, I don't know if you remember, but getting into Sidewinder Canyon, there is a little hole you crawl through to get there. That's real. I mean, that rabbit hole is real. I mean, I don't know how someone discovered it, but you basically like have to go in this little very small tunnel, you crawl through and you make your way out, and all of a sudden you're in this amazing place. But so if you are claustrophobic, that might be an issue for you. But it's not that long, so I promise you'll get through it.
It'll probably, the payoff is well worth it.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but it definitely, if you're claustrophobic and you're going to Death Valley, don't go alone, for sure.
You're right.
Or take a Valium,
Right. Yeah, we just have a couple minutes left over, but I just want to congratulate you, because this film is just beautiful. It's cinematically gorgeous, and it just reminds us what's actually out there, and very accessible to all of us, in whether they're in California or outside of the country.
Yeah.
So thank you so much, and also the reminders of not to stay complacent.
Yeah, it's I think someone said, try to wear out, not rust out. There's so many things to see out there, and not hard to get to. And I think that really, when I first wanted to see these places, I really was worried, like Joe was, that the only way you see these places is you have to ride a bike or fly a plane in somewhere and jump out of a parachute to see these incredible places. And you really don't. There's so many places beyond just these 3 places in Find Me, that just do a little bit of research, and the places you just drive and park and get out, and you'll see something amazing.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Tom. Really appreciate it. Thank you for your time. I think thank you for everyone who submitted questions. Hope we got to most of those. And please look at the chat. There's some fabulous resources, again, for the music, for the hikes. Also, if you have any more questions about contemporary Asian theater scene, we'll have the link on that too. All right. With that, I'd like to pass the program back to Sophie.
Right. Thank you so much, Tom and Leanne. Really appreciate you both being here and learned so much more about this great film and the additional resources that are available. That's so awesome. Many thanks to you both, but also to the hardworking crew behind CATS. I'd like to also make a special shout out to Cindy Toy, to Steve Yamaguma, and Vicky Takeda, who helped pull this program together. Really appreciate that. Now, I'm delighted to introduce a special recording that was made for us for this program by Katherine Toy, who is the Deputy Secretary of Access for the California Natural Resources Agency. Appointed for this newly created position by Governor Newsom, Katherine has a special message for us about exploring the outdoors in our national and state parks.
Good afternoon. My name is Katherine Toy, and I'm California's Deputy Secretary for Access in California's Natural Resource Agency. In a nutshell, that means that I get to work on creating more equitable access to our parks and open spaces for all Californians to enjoy. It's my pleasure to be here today to celebrate Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, and to do so with a heartwarming story and film about the power of parks. Did you know that in addition to being places of natural beauty, that our parks are also sites that interpret Asian American and Pacific Islander history? For example, the U.S. Immigration Station at Angel Island State Park preserves and interprets the place where more than 100,000 Asian immigrants, mostly of Chinese descent, were detained due to the exclusionary laws of the time. Or at Pa'u'u'anua Ohonaunau National Historic Site, it's a park that honors the ancient Hawaiian place of refuge. And Manzanar National Historic Site preserves and interprets the site of Japanese internment during World War II. These are just a few of the state and national parks which help to tell the stories of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. Of course, parks are probably best known for providing us with the opportunity to explore the awe and grandeur of nature. There's just something about being in the great outdoors that provides one with a unique sense of perspective. The opportunity to find peace, joy, and perhaps even the opportunity to learn something about ourselves. So I invite you to get out there and explore parks. And as you do, here are a few tips to keep in mind to recreate responsibly. Number 1, know before you go. Check out the site that you're planning to visit online before you go and see if perhaps there might be any closures due to COVID or wildfires in the area that you might want to know about. Number 2, plan and prepare. For example, do you need a reservation or a permit to go where you're going? And of course, check the weather. What kind of equipment or clothing do you need? A hat and sunscreen for warm weather, or perhaps really good hiking boots and warm socks? And always, always bring enough water. Number 3, build an inclusive outdoors. Take part in making the great outdoors something that is open and accessible to everyone, of all abilities and identities. Be kind to people who might choose to recreate in the outdoors in a way different from yours. Number 4, leave no trace. That's the old pack it in and pack it out. Remember to dispose of waste properly and to be respectful of land, water, wildlife, and native communities. And when you find things in parks like rocks, plants, natural objects, leave them where you found them. And finally, number 5, make it better. We're all responsible for stewarding these places that we love. Volunteer, make a donation, spread the word about recreating responsibly. So you can start planning your park visits online. To find a park in California near you, visit parks.ca.gov, and to find a national park, visit nps.gov. Thank you and enjoy the film.
Thank you so much, Catherine. Catherine's actually in our audience today. If you're in gallery mode, Catherine, give us a wave so we know that you're here with us. Delighted to have you. Well, thank you very much, everyone. This is the close of our program. Many thanks to Tom, Leanne, and the crew at CATS, and to our AARP California team. So glad that Tiffany and Jeannie is with us as well.